Hi everyone, welcome back to Christravaganza. Today I watched The Losers from 2010. I actually did not watch this one alone. I watched it with my mom, but really other than her point value and her answer for the arbitrary rank, she didn't really give me that much to work on or work off of. And she's also in bed at the moment, so I just decided to film this alone. I guess when I said in TMNT that we were finally getting into comic book movies, I really meant it. So what I think is really funny about this movie is that it came out in 2010, and it's based on a comic that's published by DC Vertigo, which is an imprint of DC Comics, and it came out the year before Captain America: The First Avenger. And Chris had already been in Marvel movies. The Losers is directed by Sylvain White. He's a French director who's done a few other things like in American cinema as well. I don't think I've ever seen any of them, but I have heard of Stomp the Yard. And the movie is about a group of military men, and they don't really say what branch of the military they're from, I think, but they're on a mission and it fails, and they are framed for the death of 25 innocent Bolivian children. They don't actually kill the children, the big bad billionaire just frames them for it. So in order to cover up the international relations scandal that this becomes, the American government writes them off as dead, and so they're stuck in Bolivia for 4 months, I think they say. And then they meet a woman who tells them that she can help them get back into America if they help her track the big bad billionaire down and kill him. And shit ensues, basically. With that, let's go right into our pros and cons list. And of course, the first pro is the cast. And I don't know if you've seen the cast list, but they're all like super big names still. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Idris Elba, Zoe Saldana, Oscar Yaneda, Columbus Short is also in Stomp the Yard, Chris, of course, why else would we be here if he wasn't in this movie? Jason Patric, my mom knew who he was. The cast is also a pro because they just worked really well together. The color grading throughout almost all of the movie was, if not bright and visible, interesting. For the most part, especially surrounding the Losers as a team, it was pretty like bright and vibrant and more like Scott Pilgrim than Thor: The Dark World. Idris Elba is just his own pro. Editing page, put in clip of Charles Minor saying, "I'm aware of the effect that I have on women." Initially, their intention is to save these 25 children from being trafficked. I liked that they were like, oh, we're not leaving until these kids are safe. Jensen, Chris's character, wears glasses the whole movie, and it's perfect. I don't know why somebody hasn't thought to put Chris in glasses before this. It's a look, and I'm into it. The comic book references are there for the people that know that it's based on a comic book, and even if you don't really lose anything from that experience because it is very stylized and interesting art. So it still feels like it belongs in an action movie. Zoe Saldana had an eyebrow piercing. I'm into that. Jensen is his own pro. I thought he was kind of nerdy, but also really hot and very funny. He's the kind of funny where going into it, you expect that he's just gonna make jokes about boobs, but then he just doesn't. The closest that he gets to it is at the very beginning. It lasts 15 seconds and then it's over. That's like the most uncomfortable his character gets. Throughout the entire movie, Jensen just like cannot hold a conversation with a woman.
Where are you from?
The wilds of northern Africa.
Wow, so that must have been Sandy.
And it's funny. It's funny because like he just fails at talking. It's not funny because he's like inadvertently making like sexual passes or anything. He just literally cannot hold a conversation with a woman. And they don't really ever address that Jensen has like girl problems, which was kind of refreshing, but he definitely does. It seems kind of relatable, and I liked that about his character. I think that had a lot to do with the way that like Chris plays Jensen. Cougar is the sharpshooter of the team. He's got nice arms. Angel's gonna hate this one, but at one point in the movie, Jensen just says,
Cats. Not to be trusted.
So Pooch is basically like the pilot, the driver. He takes them everywhere. He calls himself
I'm the Black MacGyver.
And that's the pro. I really liked Aisha for most of the movie. There's some parts where I was like, wow girl, you're making bad choices, but other parts I was like, okay, I feel it. There's a scene where they send Jensen into a building to get a code to unlock a hard drive.
Night it goes on and on and on.
just the whole scene is a masterpiece.
Strangers waiting up and down the boulevard.
And there's just something about Chris's smile in that scene. I genuinely enjoyed Jensen more than like anything else in this movie. Oh, and that whole scene ends with the lethal killing machine thing.
I'm warning you.
I am a lethal killing machine.
It was a secret government experiment. Turned me into a dangerous telekinetic.
Pooch has a pregnant wife that he has to get back to. And it broke my heart. When the government writes them off as dead, she goes and like picks up his fatigues and she asks one of the soldiers like if they're gonna have a memoriam for this group, and he doesn't answer her, and it's just, I felt really bad for her. Pooch deserved better. Why is this a pro? Oh, it's a pro because it made me feel things. So they find out that the big bad billionaire is, you know, hiding money in illegal offshore accounts kind of thing. And Jensen is like,
Although, if we were gonna buy stuff, I'd say a canary yellow stretch Hummer.
No.
and then at the end of the movie, they find a canary yellow stretch Hummer. They don't really say where it comes from. I just liked the callback to Jensen's dream car. He's so ridiculous and I love him. Wow. The whole movie, Jensen talks about his niece.
Oh, it's my niece's soccer team, 8 and under.
His niece is like the light of his life. She's on this soccer team. He's just so supportive of her, and every once in a while they'll check in with Jensen and he'll be like checking in with the soccer team and like what team they're going up against and how they're doing in the league.
Petunias are playing the Marigolds on Sunday. These are the Marigolds.
And he like keeps up with that while he's undercover and essentially like dead to the government because it's just that important to him. The very end of the movie, they go to his niece's soccer game. As much as I didn't really care for all of the military shit and all of the stuff with the guns and the bombs, I loved Jensen. That is the end of my pros list. So now let's go into cons. I really couldn't access the captions, and that's not really the movie's fault itself. I was watching it on a YouTube app through my Blu-ray player, so I'm sure they're there, but because of the format in which I was watching the movie, I just couldn't get to them. Of course, one of the cons has to be the helicopter full of 25 children being blown up by the big bad billionaire. He's very obvious. It's like Victor Von Doom levels of obvious. From the very moment that you meet this guy, you're like, yep, that's the big bad billionaire. You don't really ever know exactly what he's after, except that he says multiple times that he wants to like create environmental warfare. He like sinks an entire island, and that's the closest that we get to like a real motivation for this guy. Pooch's pregnant wife thinks he's dead, and it upsets me. And one of the first times you see Zoe Saldana, she's wearing a hat, and I hate it. This is a mid-2000s movie, and you know that, given the fact that Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Zoe Saldana have a whole, like, sexualized fist fight before they ever get to ask each other what it is thereafter. They were busy burning down a hotel room and causing probably like millions of dollars in property damage, all for something that could have been solved in under 15 minutes if they weren't uncivilized weirdos. Not only is the big bad billionaire bad, but he's also super fat phobic.
The man was a scientific genius. Granted, his weight signaled certain impulse control issues.
And really racist.
Who want to be a billionaire?
And I know that those are things that like a lot of people will be like, well, he's the villain. Obviously, he's all of those things. That doesn't necessarily like mean that that is the mark of a good villain or the mark of good writing or the mark of good acting. It's just unfortunate that these things are so like normalized that we have to attribute all of them to a villain to tell people that they're bad. Max's head of security is this guy named Wade, and every single time he talks to this man, he says his name at least 11 times.
Wade, Jesus, Wade. It's like giving a handgun to a 6-year-old, Wade. What do you believe in, Wade? We're saving the country, Wade. Let me have your weapon, Wade. And who am I looking at here, Wade? That sounds like a porno, Wade. Done a lot in 4 months, Wade. 5 dead men hijacked you, Wade. Oh, Wade, you know what I was thinking?
It was excessive. Why? As much as I loved almost everything about Jensen, including wearing glasses and being really dorky, I hated his facial hair. The like almost frosted tips were fine. It was the chin strap that I couldn't handle. So the team sneaks back into America and nobody recognizes them. I mean, they didn't seem to be like national heroes or anything. It's not like they appeared to be on television every day for the 4 months that they're presumed dead. The only person that recognizes any of them is Wade. Roke, Idris Elba's character, goes rogue. It was so unfortunate. And of course, because Zoe Saldana is one of only 2 women in this movie, and the only woman with an actual name and a storyline of her own, she's the one that gets naked on screen. The only one. The only character that gets naked on screen. And of course, she hooks up with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who we never see in anything less than a suit, except for after they've had sex. So they find out that the man that was abducting the children at the very beginning of the movie was Aisha's father, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan killed him. And in the standoff between Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Zoe Saldana, she shoots Jensen. She shoots him in the arm so he lives, but I'm still like, I wasn't happy about it. My last con is Clay's suit, but also just Clay as a character. I thought he was really boring and not very interesting, and the only interesting thing about him was that he was willing to put his team on the line for the sake of those children in the very beginning of the movie. But other than that, Clay is just kind of like the broody leader who makes bad decisions and has to pay the price and has to face a mutiny. Jeffrey Dean Morgan has like 3 expressions in this movie. My arbitrary rank was favorite side character, and I think y'all know who my favorite side character was. It was Jensen, in case that wasn't obvious. He's not really a side character, he's like a secondary character, but honestly Jensen could have been the main character with like how much personality this guy has.
Face down, or I'll make your heart stop beating with my mind.
And I will say that this movie seems to have been set up for a sequel that never happened. Jensen deserves his own movie, I'm just saying, and I would watch it 1000%. My mom's favorite side character was Cougar. He doesn't have a lot of lines, he's very quiet and very like focused. She just really liked Cougar's hat, but also Cougar. The IMDb score is a 6.4. The Rotten Tomatoes score is a 5.25. My score was a 7. I liked it a lot. I wouldn't say that I liked it as much as Sunshine. Definitely didn't like it as much as Push. I love Nick in Push, and I love Jensen, but Jensen was the best part of the movie, and it's only 1 point off, so really like 7 is not a bad place to be at. My mom, however, gave this movie an 8. The total point value for The Losers is 26.65. My mom also said that she had seen this movie before. She like swears that she had seen most if not all of it before, but I had never seen the movie as a whole. The one scene where Jensen goes into the building for the algorithm, I've seen most if not all of that before. I feel very vindicated at this point in the series because I'm currently editing the Sunshine video. And you'll remember that I worked myself up over the Nanny Diaries and then crushed my own heart by remembering that I had to watch another Fantastic Four movie first. But the next 5 movies after The Losers are all really solid. The only one I haven't seen is Puncture, but I have really high hopes. I'm pumped. I finally got to a streak of movies that I am excited for. Hello, hello, friends. It is editing page. You can see my computer right there. I'm editing the current video that you just watched. I'm also wearing the same shirt that I was in that video. It's a good lounge shirt, but that's not what I'm here for today. Technically, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is the next video chronologically. However, I decided to film that with as many friends as I possibly could, so there's a lot of footage to get through. I'm gonna give myself the time to work on it. And in the meantime, the movie immediately following Scott Pilgrim is Puncture. It's another one that I watched by myself, so Puncture and The Losers are going together and Scott Pilgrim will come right after that. Next up is, once again, Puncture, and I'll get into that in just a second. Hi everybody! Today I watched Puncture from 2011, and it's one that I've been looking forward to and also kind of dreading, mostly just because I had no idea what I was going into. And the last couple of times that happened, I didn't like the movie. Puncture was directed by Mark and Adam Casson, and it's based on a true story. So it's about these two lawyers, these two personal injury lawyers, who take on a case after meeting a nurse who was accidentally pricked on the job by a contaminated needle. The nurse contracts AIDS and does not even want to sue like the hospital that she works for. She just wants hospitals to be required to use this needle that her friend invented. And essentially, the needle dislodges from the syringe after it's used, so needles can't be contaminated and then reused. Plastic syringes can't be sterilized. Chris plays a character named Mike Weiss, who I'm pretty sure was Jewish. It's not ever mentioned in the movie, but it's a very Jewish name, coming from a Jew. Mike is also an addict, and I just want to make it clear that this movie is actually about addiction. London is a movie about a terrible person making awful decisions and continuously making those same decisions. He also just happens to be doing drugs. Puncture, on the other hand, is about an addict trying to do his job around his addiction. Not only is Mike's addiction affecting his work, but also there's a huge pharmaceutical supply company that refuses to pay money to make these safe needles for frontline medical workers to use that could save their lives. Pretty much just because it costs money. I'm gonna go right into my pros, and the first one is Vanessa Shaw, who played Allison in Hocus Pocus. She plays Vicky. She's the woman that is accidentally pricked at the beginning of the movie, and she just wants what happened to her to not have to happen to other medical professionals. There have been many a movie so far where Chris's look is just very good. This is one of them. Half the movie, he's shirtless, and you can just see all of Chris's tattoos, and I think some tattoos that they put on for the character. There were some really interesting camera tracking choices in this movie, specifically in the first courtroom scene where we start on an extreme close-up of Mike's face and then move out until we see the entire courtroom, and we kind of see how everything is revolving around Mike doing his job. And I think when you have camera work, or when you are putting camera work to use so well that it does a good amount of your storytelling for you, you're getting somewhere. Jesse L. Martin is in this. I love Jesse L. Martin. I just wanted more of him, but I'll talk about that later. Mike wears a leather jacket, and it's not the right color for me, but still a good look. This movie spends a good amount of time making the point that the people, the extremely rich people at the top of the ladder, the healthcare ladder, don't care at all for the people at the bottom of the ladder. All they care about is saving a couple dollars here and there. It's a pretty blatant critique on capitalism, especially when it comes to the healthcare system. Specifically in America, because it takes place in Texas. I've already talked about Vicky when I talked about Vanessa, but just like Vicky deserved better. At one point in the movie, Mike attempts to get this senator, I don't remember which senator, but a senator on his team to try to help him get a bill through Congress that would essentially require hospitals to use the safety needle. And she tells him straight up that
you're not the first person to lobby a senator hopped up on narcotics, but there is absolutely no way we can put you before the House committee, let alone the Senate.
And it's not necessarily like a waking up moment for Mike, because I think it's pretty clear throughout the movie that he knows what he's doing isn't the best for him or the best for his job or his relationships, but he's doing it because he's an addict. But at that moment, he decides that the case is so much more important than his addiction. He tells her, you know, give me a chance, I'll get clean. Let me do this. I need to do this. This is like the third or fourth or maybe fifth movie where Chris just like sits in a car very sadly. Paul Danziger is Mike Weiss's firm partner. I think they went to Harvard together in real life. They don't ever talk about it in the movie, but it's really kind of out of context for the movie. And Paul and Mike have this very interesting relationship where they very clearly know how to work well together, and they succeed in a lot of things that they do together, but they also have very different priorities outside of work. Mike is very centered around his addiction, and he has nothing, and he knows it, and he fills his life with kind of empty things, in order to make up for that emptiness. Paul, on the other hand, has a wife, and a pregnant wife at that, and a house, and he has to be able to provide for all of that. And Mike continuously spends business money recklessly, but for a good reason.
It is a monopoly case, and we're not an antitrust firm.
We're any kind of firm we want to be, Paul. Come on, this is the one. It's going to make us.
It could break us.
Mike knows that what he's doing is justified and the right thing to do. It's just expensive, and the pharmaceutical company that they are going up against does not make anything easy for either of them. They butt heads often because Paul is very concerned, especially when Mike lets their health insurance lapse and Paul's wife is about to have a baby. It kind of almost breaks them apart until the very end of the movie. I'll get to that. Paul's wife eventually does have her baby, and she is the chunkiest. Oh, she was so cute. I love chunky babies, and just like this baby was the chunkiest. So eventually Paul backs out of the case and takes a settlement, and Mike is not about it. And so when Mike dies, Paul goes and takes on the case again and takes the multi-billion-dollar corporation to court. As he should. That was my last pro, so I'm gonna go right into my cons. The opening sequence was very oddly edited. There was a lot of footage of Vicky getting her kids ready for school, and then it would just jump cut to a completely black screen with a title on it, and it was just disorienting and hard to look at. It's one of those movies where sometimes they like whisper in one scene, but then the music is too loud in the next scene, so you had to keep like turning it down and up and up and down and up and down, and just... it's hard to focus when you have to do that constantly. Mike is kind of a bad husband, and I think he knows that, but he doesn't seem to care. My mom also said that his pants were too short, which I didn't notice. What I did notice, though, was that he wears suspenders the entire movie, and I thought I was gonna like that look, but after a while I was like, Mike, please just take off the suspenders. There's not enough Jesse L. Martin. If you're gonna have Jesse L. Martin in your movie, you should have more of him. Also, make it clear what his name is, because I don't think I ever heard what it was. I know that Mike is an addict, and I am trying not to be insensitive to that. He makes bad decisions the whole movie. He makes good decisions as a lawyer for most of the movie, but then like his own personal decision making as far as what affects him as a human being, not good. Vicky died because the healthcare system in this country is broken. Mike relapses, and it's sad. It's sad because it happens because the big corporation makes it so difficult for him to do his job.
Senator's chief aide called this morning. She's tabling the issue. United Medical Health Supplies just made a very generous contribution to the senator's re-election campaign.
That he thinks that the only thing for him to do is to get high. I don't think you have to be perfect while you're going through recovery, and I don't think that everybody is gonna make it through recovery all the time, 100%, without having some kind of relapse. You can forgive yourself, and other people, especially people that truly care about you, should be able to forgive you to a certain extent. And I think that happens for Mike, but a little bit too late, because Mike does die. Mike Weiss actually died in 1999. So the movie takes place mostly in like 1997 and 1998. The police report says that he died of a drug overdose, which isn't out of the question, but there are some people that believe, and the movie kind of points to the possibility that the big pharmaceutical supply company may have had him followed and killed, and then staged it to look like a drug overdose. It's just sad that he didn't get to do what his calling seemed to be. He risked his life for this case without even really meaning to. It just happened that way. I think the most disappointing thing about it is that really Vicky and Mike both kind of died in vain, because it's not required for hospitals to use these safety needles, and even 20 years after this man passed away, we still have thousands, if not millions, of frontline medical workers accidentally pricking themselves on the job and dying because of it. And the executives of pharmaceutical companies and medical supply companies just don't care, because they don't have to pay to replace a nurse that dies. They only have to pay to make more needles. And they don't have to pay to make more needles if people are reusing needles that can't be sterilized. I really didn't have a lot of context or even knowledge on this very specific issue with frontline medical workers but it makes almost too much sense, and it is heartbreaking. Moving out of the more serious side of this video, my arbitrary rank was whether or not we could remember the characters' names, and my mother cannot remember anything most of the time. I remember some things. I remembered most of the characters' names. I did write them down quite often, but mostly just as part of my pros and cons, not necessarily because I was trying to cheat and remember their names or anything. But I could remember Mike, Paul, Jeffrey Dancourt, he's the guy that invented the safety needle, Vicky, Neil Price is the lawyer representing the huge medical supply company that doesn't want to comply with the safety needles. Mike's wife's name, or ex-wife's name, is Jamie, and Paul's wife is Kim. That's the extent of what I remember. I truly don't think they ever gave Jesse L. Martin's character a name on screen. The IMDb score is a 6.9, the Rotten Tomato score is a 5.64. My score is a 7.5. I liked it a lot. I just didn't like it as much as I liked Sunshine or The Nanny Diaries, so I had to give it half a point less. My mother gave it a 9. She's way too nice. And the total point value for Puncture is 29.04. It is currently the highest score because my mother gave it a 9. Neither of us had ever seen this movie. I think I had heard of it before, but mostly just through like GIF sets on Tumblr. Hi, editing page again. Just back to say, once again, Scott Pilgrim is next, not Captain America. As excited as I am, Captain America will come after Scott Pilgrim. And I'll remind you of that then too. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please click the bell below so you don't miss any of our future videos. And also, give it a thumbs up for algorithm reasons, because I'd like to get paid this year. If you're not already subscribed to The Princess and the Scrivener, please do so down below as well, especially if you'd like to see more videos on Disney, intersectional feminism, pop culture critiques, Christravaganza, and more. One of us will see you real soon.